Now, though, there is no doubt that the current job market is really, really competitive, but if you're from a non-Anglo background, your job prospects are even less promising. It's a horrible truth that we do have to face up to here in Australia. Racial hiring practices are more prevalent than we would really like to admit. A 2017 University of Sydney study found that job applicants with Anglo-Saxon names were 8.2% more likely to be invited back to interview. Organisational psychologist Dina Ward joins us now to chat about recruitment bias in the workforce and why for such a multicultural nation we're still seriously struggling with issues of diversity. Dina, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me, Tess.
I think one of the things that brought this up over the last couple of months, there was the report that we all saw. Optus had an online job posting for a store in Neutral Bay saying that their preference was for Anglo-Saxon staff. Why is it that discrimination like this still exists here in Australia?
It's a great question, probably one that's multi-layered, so I'll try to answer it as succinctly as possible. But I guess on a brain level, it's because we're drawn to people who are similar to us that we identify with, and we feel comfortable with those type of people, and people who are different from us we perceive as a threat and a risk. So we tend to kind of gravitate away from those people. Essentially on a brain level, that's what it's about. But I suppose on a social level in Australia, it's probably because we don't integrate very well. We tend to live in sort of community pockets and, again, speaking with people who come from a similar background to us, they're very similar to us, so we don't tend to mix well with other pockets of communities, if that makes sense.
And I mean, job descriptions always, I guess, need to be specific in some respects, whether that's about the required qualifications. But how do employers draw the line between looking for a specific fit for a role and keeping recruitment bias in check?
Well, exactly. Someone's skin colour or ethnic background hardly has any weighing on how successful they will be in a job. We know that. It's obviously having to pay attention to other criteria that are relevant, such as, their qualifications and their skills and experience, not so much which university they attended or where they grew up. That really shouldn't have an influence, and we know that it doesn't influence how they actually do their job. So as long as clients or organisations are focusing on the criteria that is relevant to the job, so whether that's qualification or a skill set, that's fine. Making it specific in that way, but making it specific in terms of, someone's cultural or ethnic background is obviously, discrimination.
Is there a simple answer to recruitment bias or I guess a specific right way to go about recruitment?
Well, there's definitely right ways to go about it. There's no silver bullet solution, and there's no one clear answer, unfortunately. Otherwise, we would have solved it by now. But I think one of the things, and this is something that I talk about a lot, which I think is really important, and I think it works on a level, is blind recruitment, because it's a great starting point, and it's been proven to work. And I think mostly because 50% of applicants find the recruitment process highly stressful due to fears around discrimination. So it's not even so much about what blind recruitment can achieve. It's the message that it sends out to applicants about your brand and the fact that you take diversity very seriously and that you are committed to recruiting more diverse people. And I think ultimately that's what leads to more diverse candidates applying to work for your organisation.
And we've seen, I suppose, we're chatting this morning about, diversity in race, but there is also a lot of other intersections that come into it. There's age, sex, a lot of other ability is another one that comes into it quite frequently. How prevalent is recruitment bias in general in Australia?
Unfortunately, it is quite prevalent, probably more than you would expect. You've mentioned some stats there at the beginning, but we know people with Chinese names need to send 68% more applications to get a call back. And we know one of the really frightening statistics is that if you have just one person in your shortlist of applicants from a different cultural background, there's zero chance that they will be offered a job. So most clients that I work with who end up with a short list of never more than sort of 4 or 5 candidates, it's really rare to see more than one ethnically diverse candidate in that short list of 4 or 5. And we know that if there's only one, there's zero chance they're going to be hired. And it's always what we see happening. And I always say, kind of look around us and the things we hear on the radio and the things we see in the media and on TV, there's very little diversity that we see, considering that, more than 60% of our population are of non-Australian ancestry. So, unfortunately, quite prevalent.
It is scary stuff. Dina, thanks for chatting to us this morning.
Not a problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was organisational psychologist Dina Ward chatting about racism and recruitment bias and the fight against workforce discrimination.